Hi everyone, thank you for being here. I promised a video about death walking, and that is what this is going to be. So, what is it? It is a facet of mediumship. And hi, Holly. Holly Speaks to Spirit is the name of my channel. And I am an energy reader, and I do general readings for the collective about 5 days a week. So, however, this video is going to be just a little bit different. It is fully tutorial, and I get a lot of questions about this because it happens a lot on the channel. Yes, I am a psychic medium, and and I have worked publicly. I have had a lot of private clients, and I have worked all over the place. So yes, in addition to what I call my day job. So I do not do private readings any longer, however. I do and will always do what I call death walking. A lot of people call it that. It is a type of mediumship. It is a niche within mediumship. It is something that if you are a death walker, and it's called by many names in many different traditions by many different groups, I am most comfortable with the moniker of death walking or a death walker. And what it is. It is not ghost hunting. It is not, most of the time, it's not something that you can do in a setting where you're doing private readings and people want to hear from a long lost relative or a friend who passed. I'm not sure where to begin because it is so vast, and I didn't want to script this. Death walking differs in that these are spirits that have not transitioned. And I don't care for the word earthbound. I prefer untransitioned or not transitioned spirits. They could be from hundreds of years ago. They could have been from a week ago. So there isn't a time frame associated with them. Everyone has free will. When we die, and I have had a near-death experience, I was dead for 30 minutes. And I came out of it without brain damage. I came out of it pretty normal, actually. And no, that's not when all of this started. It started when I was a child. It started very young. I didn't know what to call it back then. I knew not to be afraid of spirits because that's sort of the instruction I received as a child from family members. And I use the word instruction loosely. So, but when we cross over, any spirit in this world that crosses over will go into the light of the other side. I refer to it as home frequently, and I'm getting to the death walking part. I call it home frequently because I have never felt that level of compassion and love in my life. There were no strings attached. There was no baggage. There was nothing. It didn't matter who I was or what I had done or what I believed. I was welcomed, and I was completely and thoroughly loved. And that's a whole different conversation for another day. No, if people do really horrible things intentionally in this lifetime, they don't get a free ride on the other side. They have to understand what they did and why. But that's a whole different thing that we can go into later if you want. With the death walking, there are spirits that choose not to go into that light. They choose not to cross over to the other side. They choose not to go to that original home, for any number of reasons. Sometimes it's feelings of guilt or not being good enough. Sometimes it's the messages they received growing up. And yes, children can choose not to go into the light. It's a fallacy in my experience to think that you have to be an adult or you have to have done something wrong. There are a lot of people who don't want to leave others behind, and they stay. There are others who can't accept what happened to them, and they stay. There are others who stay because they're just kind of mean. That is a real thing too. Yeah, and again, that's a whole different category. The majority, the vast, overwhelming majority of spirits that have chosen not to cross over, have chosen not to go home when they die. In my experience, and I'm pretty old, so I've been doing this a long time, even when I didn't know what to call it, and even when I wasn't working publicly. In my experience, the vast majority of spirits that choose not to cross into the light do so from fear. And if they are angry, it's angry that they passed and how they passed. There are spirit guides and guardians that surround and protect and help those spirits that maybe when they passed they were not completely coherent. They are surrounded, encircled, and in my experience, helped across so that they can't get lost. But the people who are of sound mind, maybe not body, they have chosen to turn away from that light for any number of reasons. So that's when the Deathwalker comes in. And yes, I can imagine people are asking now, so you charge to help? No, I don't. It's very rare. If someone calls me to clear a home or a business or a space, I will look into it, and it could just be that it needs energetic clearing, not necessarily death walking work. But for the most part, when you do this work, this particular facet of mediumship, it finds you. You don't have to even go looking for it. And it's often done quietly. No one knows about it because that's what we're charged to do in this lifetime. And we can choose to not look at it and not do it, but usually it doesn't stop following us around. So what we do is we don't do anything. We facilitate. We are translators. We are helpers to the all that is, the creator of all things, and the spirit guides and guardians, the archangels that come on behalf of that divinity. We ask for the gateway. I call it the gateway. And I've had a lot of instruction from my spirit guides and guardians about ways to handle situations. I didn't always handle it in the best way, and I received instruction to help me understand how to handle it. Even in my sleep, even when I'm woken up from sleep, which happens all the time. I don't know of a death walker who gets one full night's sleep. I don't remember that. And we cannot take sleep aids because then it makes us even more vulnerable to whatever is around. And our dream state can be very interesting. And don't mistake all dreams to be visitations from spirit. Sometimes it's just the busy brain working things out. Again, that's another video for another day. So as a death walker, we have conversations with these spirits, and it happens in any number of ways. We can sense, we can tell, we can feel a shift in the energy. Our pets pick up on it. Very often we will get sick. I will have a flare. Sometimes it's because I'm just flared up about something, okay? But sometimes it's because something is coming from somewhere that needs to be addressed. If you are a physical medium, and I tend to be, I will feel what was happening around them at the time, their emotions, any physical pain. So it's always good to ask yourself, where is this coming from, and is it mine? Or is this someone else's? And then start digging into it. Anything can be a trigger for it. You can be reading a book, typically nonfiction, and if it has pictures, wow, okay. Neighborhoods, houses, even new construction, it doesn't matter what it is. It's built on old, ancient ground. So there is no one size fits all with this work, and this is just my experience. However, there are, from what I have discovered talking to others, commonalities. So, what happened, and anyone can do this, anyone can do this, but a lot of people who are mediums choose not to do this type of work because it is heavy, it is dense, it is uncomfortable. It would be like being a hospice or a hospice worker. It's heavy work. And it's something that you can't let your own emotions get tied into. Would you want a surgeon who breaks down and cries in the middle of a surgery? No. You want a surgeon who is laser focused and good at what they do. They may go home and cry about it, but not in the process, because you can't have that luxury when you do this work, because you're not helping anyone. And you could be feeding whatever energy is coming toward you. I'm kind of jumping around all over the place, but I'm getting there. All right. So when you have encountered this type of energy, the first thing to do is, and this is just basic mediumship 101, asking, and you can tell, you can feel the difference if they have moved on or they haven't. And some are sort of halfway, 1 foot on the other side, 1 foot in this world. But at any rate, if they haven't fully crossed, they need to. That's not the time to make a friend. That's not the time to start asking too many questions. You want to move them on, and you want to move them on as quickly as you can. Think about if no one had been able to hear you, and let's say you'd been dead for anywhere from 5 to 10 to 20 to 100 to 200 to 300 years. Imagine the state of mind you would be in when you already obviously had reasons to stay behind, and then you realized no one can hear me. And then someone does. Do you really want to linger and stay in that? And if it's a recent passing, you want to just move them on as quickly as you can instead of lingering with that energy, because you don't want them to kind of freak out and run off. They will be back. We are not doing this on our own. As I said, we are facilitators for spirit. We aren't doing anything on our own. We are humans. We are humans entirely. We just so happen to be able to connect to this energy. I always have my protection teams with me. I always ask for spirit guides and guardians. I always ask for archangels to surround and protect. I always ask for any loved ones of the people or the person who needs help transitioning to please come through and help them across. Sometimes you'll have a mass transition if it's like during COVID or a war or a mass shooting or a terrorist attack. And I've experienced all those. Not personally in them, well, COVID. But we ask for spirit, and I simply say, I'm here to do what you need me to do. Show me what to do. You take over. I am simply a translator. So, there have only been a couple of times that I was working with energies that were incredibly difficult and intentionally mean. Only a couple of times in all these years. And at that point, it was time for them to move on, and it was out of my hands, and they were taken. Now, most, when they realize how wonderful it is to go home, they run. They run through that gateway. They run into the light. I'm not going to go into all of the different types of reasons or examples for why they stay behind. I will give you an example of why we are needed in the human realm, as humans, as mediums, to do this. And no, it will not make you rich and famous. And no, it won't get you a TV show. And no, it won't do all those things. It would be like if someone became, let's say, a nun to get rich and famous. It just doesn't make sense, right? And not that you have to be a pauper and have leprosy and die of starvation or anything, but you deserve to be able to survive and make a living in whatever form you choose. But if this is what you were called to do, you will know it, and you will have known it since you were a child. Okay. Now, the example. So the example I will give about why we are needed, because I've asked spirits so many times and they keep giving me the same answer. Because I'm like, you all know so much more than we do. We are like children in the spirit world. Humans are the children of anything connected to the spirit world. No matter how much we think we know, there's always more to learn. And so I always ask, I'm like, why do you need us? You can just simply open the gateway and say, hey, look, it's a party, and they'll want to go and whatever. I mean, that's an exaggeration and an oversimplification. But they need us to be translators. And the reason why I use the word translator, what I was shown was an example. So let's say you, in this lifetime, are in a remote area of the world where not many people speak your language and you don't speak theirs, and it's nighttime it's almost nighttime, the sun is setting, you are lost, you have no idea where you are, you have no idea how to get back to the place where you're staying, and you start to panic a little bit. And then all of a sudden, a few paces off, you hear someone speaking in your language, and you're like, oh, it's like a lifeline. There are good people all around you. There may be some bad ones in there too. They're everywhere you go. But you hear someone speaking your language, and you immediately run to where they are and ask, oh my gosh, can you help me? I'm lost. They could be serial killers. They could be there to harvest a kidney. You don't know. But odds are going to be good that they are good people and will help you. All you know is that you trust what is familiar to you. Just like these dead people without a body, because at that point, they're not in their higher self or their sacred self. They're not in their fullest connection to the divine and all that is. They are still just like they were as a human, but without a body and without being seen. They are lost. And when they feel someone familiar, someone who still feels very human and can hear them and communicate with them, holy moly, they will believe you before they will believe something that's over there that's like, that seems too good to be true. I can't tell you how many times I've had spirits when that gateway opens up and I simply ask for it to be opened. I can't tell you how many times I've had spirits look at me and say, is that real? Can I, is that for real? Is that real? Can I trust it? In whatever way they need to. And language is not a barrier in spirit. It doesn't matter what part of the world they're from, I hear it in my language. And I'm able to communicate with them. And they understand me. So, not sure how that works, but hey, I'm glad it does. Sometimes it makes getting a name a little tricky because I try to, if they're taking a little bit more time, sometimes that can be a little tricky. But sometimes I don't even know their names. Sometimes I open it immediately and they see it and I just nod and I say, it's real, it's okay, you can go home now. It's time. And they go. And that's all I need. I'm not there to dig into, so what happened to you? Once they cross over, if they want to communicate that to me, they are in a much better position to do it where they don't have all the emotions involved. Because that's when you could lose them. And you don't want to lose them. I hope this makes sense. I have had questions. I know people are curious because I do on my regular readings, general readings, I do have a lot of energies that come through that need help with facilitating a movement home or a crossing on to home. And so there are a lot of people out there who do this work. More than likely, they're just really quiet about it. And those of you who have always had a calling toward it but don't fully understand it, there are some calling cards that are part of it. For me personally, it's been anomalous health issues. I have symptoms and then they just go away. And I test negative for anything related to it. Not sleeping through the night. Having lucid dreams that are impactful and spirits coming to talk to you and wake up and sure, and then I come out of it and I still remember it, so then I start doing the work to move them on. And again, be careful about the dream thing. Not all dreams are spirit interactions. Understand that. But it's when we are most vulnerable and they have an easier time stepping in, because sometimes we get so caught up in our daily living that we have to almost be knocked over to say, "Oh, okay, I'm open for business. Come on in. Let me hear what you got to say." And if you are around people who it scares some people, and they try to push it away, or they don't want to hear about it, or they don't believe you, and that's okay. Just that's them. Let them do what they need to do to make themselves feel better about themselves, and you just keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to share it with everybody either. I just know that I have had a lot of questions about it. This is the most important work to me I've ever done. I mean, my day job was very intense, and I crossed paths with a lot of living people, and that was very important to me too. But in terms of from childhood, things that I knew had to be done, that I knew I needed to be a part of, this has always been it. And other death walkers tend to be a little edgy sometimes, a little unsure, a little guarded. And there's a reason for that, because, it's our trust levels are very often very low too. And we've also often had a lot of trauma in our own lives. And that's also what makes us familiar and safe to people. So I hope this helps. I hope this answers questions. This is only one facet of mediumship, a very specific facet of mediumship. It is not the kind that usually happens with the readings that take place. Of like, if you go to a medium because you've had a loss, this is a very different type. And this is my comfort zone. I will do the other work, or I've done the other work, but I'm not always, there's always a sense of almost, I don't want to say dread, but there's a sense of the weight of responsibility, and there's an even greater weight of responsibility, in all honesty, because you're holding people's emotions in your hands, whether it's the living or the dead. Please remember that. With any psychic work, with any mediumship, you are holding people's emotions and wellness in your hands. If your comfort zone is doing the readings, that's great. You found where you belong. If your comfort zone is working with the ones who are a little lost and need someone they can trust to move them on, then you found what you were looking for as well, or you found your place. That happens to me, my place. So this is turning into a fairly long video. That's why I didn't make it a short. And thank you. I hope I've answered most of the introductory questions about this. There are so many scenarios, and every scenario is different. Each spirit is handled differently. So there is no one size fits all, and there are things that I've noticed over the course of my years of doing this type of work. It has altered and changed, and the types that the divine and spirit guides will often bring in front of me sometimes, or lead me to, they will sometimes change. Sometimes they just show up, they find me. Sometimes if I'm led to a specific place, or I'm led to a specific book or documentary, it's like, oh, okay. And so then I just shut it off, sit down, tune in, and then that's when the real work starts. I used to want to validate everything, but I have to find validation. I have to make sure I was right. And I would find it very often. Sometimes I wouldn't, sometimes I would. I'm at the point now where that was an ego need, and who cares? I don't need it. I just need to know that it's happening. I am being supported by my spirit teams, and I connect with them through meditation. So if you don't have a meditative practice, please begin one, so you know what they feel like, as opposed to any energy coming in the room. So this was actually a lot of information, and I hope it helps, and I hope it clarifies some things. And I am posting this on the weekend, and Monday I will get back to a general reading. And the last couple of weeks, they've been pretty intense and a little hard. So hopefully we'll get back to some just fun and a little bit more lighthearted readings mixed in with some of the heavier ones. So thank you, and be well, and thank you. Just thank you. We'll talk soon. Sooner than I thought. This always happens. I have this great exit. Thank you. Seriously. Be well, take care of yourselves.